Commission. Michael, Steve, and Mark will not be here tonight. So first item, any comments for public on the committee? Then we have minutes for June 13th and the 27th. Were sent out to you previously. Did you have any corrections, errors, changes? Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I want to start reviewing what we had previously labeled as non-controversial proposed changes, just to verify that we're still okay with those at the moment. And I'm just going to go through them. The typographical changes, legal compliance, and not controversial changes. And as I go through them, if you think there's something that needs more discussion, just let me know. We clarified the general laws to be the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Clarifying that the quorum is a simple majority of the entire authorized complement of a multi-member body. That's in section Article 1. Article 2.
Okay, over here.
2-7, initiation warrant articles. We added the words written or electronic copy to be provided to the chairperson of the Finance Committee. Instead of it just saying copy mailed to the residents. So it allows for other ways to get it to the chair of the Finance Committee. 2-10, rules of procedure. This was requested from town moderator. The conduct of town meeting shall be governed by the latest version of town meeting time and such other rules and regulations that town meeting may establish from time to time. Town meeting time is in the bylaws, but Tim suggested it be here. And go down to section 3-2, appointments by the Board of Selectmen. Changing building inspector to building commissioner, and change the word affirm to ratify. School committee, changing to elect the superintendent to select the superintendent.
Appoint.
Appoint.
It's
So
supposed to be
that should be
appoint.
appoint.
But we also have to bring that to our school committee to see if they have any changes.
Oh, sure. No, that's
Okay.
fine. We were just going over what we've
Yeah.
already done, so.
Because we didn't get that yet, right? We didn't bring it to them.
We haven't
And we
read
haven't seen it.
True.
Well,
So
and you've
we
got a
got
new
there.
superintendent, you've
Yeah,
got new
so we
members, so it's a
need-
good time.
yeah.
And I
So
guess,
that's on the agenda for next
I
week.
guess in effect we do elect them, right? We did vote.
Yeah, but it's still appointed.
Right. It should be what you do
Yeah.
and what your minutes say and other things
Yeah.
like that. This is the time to make the,
So it's on the agenda for next week,
Wednesday. Yes,
Yeah.
next Wednesday.
okay?
cemetery commission. So the last sentence says, the current language says the day-to-day care and maintenance of the cemetery shall be under the supervision of the town manager. We had proposed who may delegate such authority. I don't believe we need that because in the section under town manager, the town manager automatically has the authority to delegate. So I would propose that we not change this
Got 1 second.
if we don't need to do that.
You point me in that direction.
3-5.
Well, no, in the,
So where
What's
point me
town
in the,
manager?
where it refers to that in town managers.
That's why we should do it at this point.
Role.
Powers and duties, supervise.
Where's the timer?
That is 4
4
4-1 appointment, powers and duties.
We have that elsewhere, and I know that language is elsewhere.
4-3, delegation of
4-3.
authority. The town manager may authorize any subordinate officer or employee to exercise any power or perform any function or duty which is assigned to the office of town manager, provided, however, that all acts performed under such delegation shall at all times be deemed to be the acts of the town manager.
Yep.
So, section 4-3. So we don't need added language, let's just keep it simple.
I would agree with that. And you also did have sole responsibility.
We're going to come back to that, because that one...
That was relatively controversial.
Sole responsibility, that came from the cemetery commissioners. They asked the word sole responsibility to make regulations. I've got no problem with that, because they're the only ones who can make regulations about cemetery commissioners, so...
They couldn't at custom MGL. I don't know, I never went and checked it, but if you remember when they came in, that's why
Right,
they
yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted to,
Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's see. Parks. So 3.9, park commissioners, who may delegate, town managers, so we don't need that again. Planning board, ratify versus affirm. Again there. 3-14 or 3-13, depending on whether we eliminate a section. Sewer, who may delegate such authority. We'll take that out as well for town manager. And then they've got ratify and affirm as well. Let's see, town manager. 4-2C, building commissioner instead of inspector. Subject D, provisions of the town personnel bylaw. We added that in addition to the civil service law and any collective bargaining agreements as may be applicable regarding how the town manager is authorized to remove people. Since the personnel bylaw covers certain employees, we needed to add that. Ratify versus affirm. E, to be the personnel administrator who is entrusted with administration of the town personnel system. We've eliminated the in conjunction with the personnel board. They will still have their duties, it's just not needed under the town manager. We added the words except the school department, since that doesn't cover that. Section J, changing from the 5 fiscal years next ensuing to for the following 5 fiscal years, just be a little bit cleaner. B, under the chief procurement officer, eliminating the references to the chapters of the laws because those may change, and just saying in a manner provided in the general laws, and have the powers given to the purchasing agencies by the general laws.
Do you need to clarify general laws of Commonwealth or anything?
Under definitions earlier, there's a small GL and there's a capital GL, and capital GL is common general laws, meaning the...
General laws already defined. Okay.
Right. And the little general laws
Sorry,
may be something that's a special act as well.
Thank you.
These are good questions. Subsection S, same section. Maintain long-term financial forecasts, including revenue expectations, future implications of operating budget programs and capital budget programs. Took out the words related to infrastructure, maintenance, improvement, expansion, and we just wanted to keep it broader than that. Because capital programs may be beyond infrastructure, maintenance, improvement, or expansion. They may be acquisition as well. I think that's what the capital budget is.
actually, I mean, it could include those things, but it doesn't include those things. typically when the capital plan comes through, it might have pieces of that. So I don't know if you want to leave that, or if you want it to create, or think about something beyond capital, because the capital plan doesn't require the forethought that the buildings do.
So I'll put that down as additional discussion, because that may actually need to be expanded. It may be covered somewhere else, but
And we can cover it when we had that discussion, but it seems to me that even if it's not the capital planning committee, it could still be the town manager's responsibility.
Well, it is, but I
Right.
think, but you're referring to the capital budget, and the capital budget has historically been computers but not infrastructure. So some infrastructure in the sense that, yeah, we're going to replace a heater here, but
I think the word infrastructure was the part that was the so it's prepare and maintain long-term financial forecasts, including revenue expectations, future implications of operating budget decisions, and capital budget programs. So this is a long-term forecast. What's the implication of that? Now, this is related to maintenance, improvement, and expansion.
Capital could be the purchasing of a
Fire truck.
fire truck.
Although technically it could be an expansion.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Or if it's a...
I mean, it can. I guess I'm just thinking more
Yeah.
specifically that the way that it typically appears, we have a capital budget that's voted on at town meeting.
Right.
And it's usually if we were going to do something that involved the buildings, that seems to be pulled out separate. You know what I mean? It's just bigger.
So part of it is the discussion of what is capital budget.
That's all. That's, yeah.
We may need to define that elsewhere, or we'll talk about this one more. So this is why we're going over these things.
There's something on the website about capital plan.
Well, Jamie just knows it, but...
Well, even infrastructure, I mean, the roads were always part of the capital plan, but because
Right.
they were so big, we took them
Took them
out.
out, right.
Right.
But it was under the town manager's...
It's under the
budgeting.
town manager's purview.
Right.
I guess I'm just saying that rather than take that language out and just make it capital budget.
Mhm.
Well, I think that's important because this is to prepare and maintain long-term financial forecasts. So operating budget and capital budget programs, that roads should be in this.
Right.
Because the
Right.
maintenance of it, the replacement of
Right.
it, fire
Mhm.
trucks,
Mhm.
new fire trucks, added fire truck
Right.
versus replacement fire trucks.
Right.
So I think it would be
Police
important to
cars
clarify
and all
this.
that.
Let's see.
Boats.
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 ATVs.
Yep, ATVs.
Section 5-3, Department of Finance and Financial Services.
First year, I
Like
see
five.
it as a streets.
That goes back to the 70s. Buy, do, lease.
Yeah, oh gosh, that discussion. So fun.
Is there an operator? What are the fringe benefits?
Yeah.
There shall be a Department of Finance and Financial Services headed by a Director of Municipal Finance. And the old language said, who may be the town manager established by Article 4, and that's been crossed out and proposed to who is either the town manager or the town manager's appointee per Article 4. That's a little bit clearer.
Well, if the town manager has the authority to appoint anybody to act as town manager, wouldn't it be clear to say headed by a town manager?
I think it was just because they were introducing a new role and function at the time.
Well, if you go a sentence later, if the Director of Municipal Finance is not the town manager, the appointment of the director by the town manager shall be effective such and such. So you're right. Who is, we could say, who is the town manager? Let's see, this is Article 4.
Then
Well, then it
it
goes
wouldn't
on.
necessarily be Article, would it be Article 4 or Section 4?
It's
So we
Article
say
4
we're-
is the entire thing about the town manager.
Okay.
But it's,
But Section 4.3.
Then you can take out all the rest of it. Something about the appointment. And then the school, the select board not ratifying your appointment. Right?
Well,
All
we-
of that is,
we would keep that.
Would you keep that? Okay.
Because up above it says that it's one of the ones that the town manager appoints subject to the ratification.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, so that's
So
why
that's
it's section
section
that way.
4.3 then.
right.
Right, so we have to leave it in that way. Who's the other town?
So 4.3 is the delegation of authority. And is this the only,
This is the only one that specifically calls out whether it's the town manager or not. And this goes back to the days when the town charter was the CAFO, Chief Administrative Finance Officer, with the idea that the town manager would be the chief financial officer. So that, I think we've moved on from that. I think we just say, who is...
is this the only appointed position by the town manager that requires the Board of Selectmen to ratify?
No.
Okay.
Okay. We'll have a chance to look at it again once we put the language in it. 5-3. Subsection D5, Division of Procurement. It was proposed that this was taken out because it's elsewhere in her duties. The town manager also felt that there didn't need to be a separate division.
Well, there isn't, so.
Right. She is the procurement office, sir.
Is that required by charter? Could we have a procurement officer other than the town manager if we chose to?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Like reporting to the town manager, or does that?
We could have more than one.
I thought that was one of the benefits of having a town manager that was able to be a procurement office. They have a special...
So if we go back up above to town manager's powers,
I mean, basically, in the absence of the chief procurement officer, you want somebody else who is qualified to step in and perform that role.
be the personnel administrator.
Well, I guess I should take that back. You do appoint one, probably one at a time, but,
Well, subsection M,
yeah.
under town manager, it says, "To be the chief procurement officer of the town, responsible for procuring all officers." So the charter provides that the town manager is the chief procurement
Right,
officer.
okay.
And with that delegation authority, then she could delegate somebody else.
But she's still responsible for it?
Right.
Yes, my
Right.
question, okay.
That's why that's why she was saying we don't need the division.
Right.
But if you had a purchasing office, that would,
Right. 6-3, submission of budget and budget message. Taking out, the town manager shall simultaneously provide for the publication, in the past it said, in a local newspaper, and put it on the town website, of a general summary of the proposed budget. And then we also added, at the end of that section, the summary of the budget shall be mailed with the warrant to households with registered voters as provided in the town bylaws. So while we were taking it away from the newspaper, not everybody gets the newspaper, the website's more accessible, but at the same time we wanted the general summary to be in the warrant that's mailed to the households.
You know, and not everybody accesses the websites either, so.
Can it be an and?
And
I want to say, it
Oh,
has
that's
not
on
been the
website.
practice to put it in the newspaper.
it
And.
has not been the practice,
Right.
even though it's been
In the charter.
in the charter.
Oh.
We are discovering a lot of things as a result of reading the charter,
Okay.
throughout the whole thing, that some people are and aren't doing.
Mhm.
So things have been changing already.
Oh, yeah. You find this everywhere.
So part of this was a cost saving.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering how the general populace will know that it's on the town website if they're not informed in some manner.
Well, they're going to get it with their mailing of the warrant.
The mailing of the warrant will come after the budget hearings.
Mhm.
But I think that this publication takes place after the budget hearings as well, because this is going to be,
Right, currently on the website, it has to be submitted to the Finance Committee. The town manager submits it to the Finance Committee and simultaneously put it on the website. The notice will go out when it's mailed with a warrant, so that's after the budget hearing, you're right.
Okay.
So I'm going to suggest website versus local newspaper, that this would be something we would highlight and ask in our public outreach.
yeah, because I don't think that there's a problem putting it in the newspaper, other than, I don't know what the cost would be that would be associated with that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just we've been talking about and hearing a lot about increasing communication and participation. And of course, the website versus the paper, I don't know that it's a versus kind of thing. We now have the town Facebook page, that could be an option. Just however we can get the information out there. The sign out front of Ritter, proposed budget available online.
Right.
Something like that that people can see.
Okay?
You could put an ad in the paper that says, go
Just
to...
a public notice.
Just a public
Just like
notice.
that, so yeah.
It doesn't have to be...
Proposed budget is available
Yeah,
online.
Right.
Or
Well, it's actually just the
library.
budget summary at that point.
Right.
It's not the budget.
Right, but
but just to
Something.
direct them.
What do you guys do? You have your hearing, and then you post it on your website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For the school committee, because we don't do the individual, like the school, we just have the total amount for the school
Right.
committee, we don't have any detail, so.
yeah, those are well published in our agendas ahead of time too.
And I think they go out in the superintendent report, like...
And
So it goes to families of
Yeah.
oh yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm pretty sure she attaches...
Well,
Oh, she could very well, I don't have any
She used to,
cases.
I will see what the new one
See,
does, but the
well-
old one used to attach it to it.
Yeah, no, again, it was, because I
Yeah.
don't have children in the system, I had no,
Yeah.
but I don't look at it anyway. Well, I can't, I have a conflict, so.
6-4 budget message. Changing the word affect to effect to be the correct language. 6-5 budget. We took out the words in the presentation of the budget, the town manager shall utilize modern concept of fiscal presentation so as to furnish maximum information for the best financial control. The modern concept of fiscal presentation, best financial control. I'm not sure if presentation is going to be the financial control, but I think it's been determined that we have a format that meets the auditor's requirements, the finance committee's requirements, so we don't need this language here.
And I agree with that.
Proposed expenditures for current operations detailed by town agency appropriation. We took out the words "in position in terms of work programs." So we were leaving it open. I think terms of work programs tend to go back to some of the zero-based budget, program budgets, where you would actually show, here's how we run an election, here's how we do detective work, here's how we do police patrol, other things like that. So we are getting out of the requirement to do that. It may be included. But I think this came from the town manager. So we can't explain what it is, we're probably not going to be there. C, identify all other sources of funding is the new wording. We were actually calling out estimated surplus revenue, free cash, estimated balances, and any special accounts. Identify all other sources of funding is a catch-all. We'll be able to get that. Section 7-8, procedures governing multiple member bodies. So agenda, bringing our charter in compliance with Mass General laws, saying that the notice has to be posted for an agenda 48 hours not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays. And shall be posted, no matter shall be acted on the agenda unless the member body first adopts by separate vote a resolution declaring an emergency exists and that a particular matter must be acted upon at that meeting for emergency preservation, peace, health, and we added the words in accordance with general laws. C, changing the word journal to minutes. Each member body shall determine its own rules and order of business unless otherwise provided by this charter. We added the words bylaws or general law and changed journal to minutes. And we did not require certified copies be kept available in the office of the town clerk. Same minutes replacing journal. Quorum, the same language before, supplemented with the entire authorized complement of the multi-member body.
So relative to the posting, I know there's been in the past some issue about Fridays not being open. Is this covering it with the 48 hours?
Yeah, that's not considered a legal holiday. That would count for notice, especially because they post outside of town hall.
The problem is somebody has to be there to post it.
Right.
Right.
So you wouldn't be able to post anything on Friday,
Right.
but
If you send it to the clerk?
no,
No.
it has to be posted.
But if we
Right.
put it up on
Thursday, you can count Friday as one of the days
okay.
because it's available to the public on the board outside of town hall. The concept is it available
So
to be
put a
seen?
Thursday.
You could have a
Meeting
Monday,
Sunday.
yeah. You could have a
Really?
Monday.
You can't have a meeting on Sunday.
Okay.
You're not supposed to have a
Monday
meeting on
on
Sunday or legal
Monday?
holidays.
Monday?
So if you had a Monday meeting, you would
At
have it on
night.
Thursday. so-
Yeah.
No, you'd have to have it on Wednesday. If you're going to have a 5 o'clock meeting on Monday,
Yeah, you have
it would
to
have to be 5 o'clock on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So 5 o'clock to Thursday, 5 o'clock. No, you
No,
count Monday,
it would have to be
You count
Thursday
Monday,
by 5
Thursday
o'clock.
by 5 for the
Yeah.
5 o'clock on Monday,
Yeah.
right. Thank you.
It's okay.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
All I know is that snow days don't count.
What?
Well, our finance committee didn't get posted because nobody anticipated a snowstorm, so somebody thought they had plenty of time to get it up. But they didn't, so we ended up not being able to meet.
Section 8-5, continuation of government. We do not need that because just above section 8-2 is continuation of government.
Is there a reason that the language was changed?
Um,
Or are we looking at changing 8.2 language to 8.5?
No, that was added, I added that because I found it from other charter, not realizing we already had it, and actually council noted saying you don't need that.
So what you taking
It's
out,
not- it's not in the
Yeah, taking out the
Taking
word.
out 8.5, 8.2 is going to say, you're not going to make a
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, these five have been changed.
Okay, so to recap, school committee is going to look at their language. We're taking out the wording, who may delegate in 3-5, 3-9, and 3-13. The town manager already has that authority. 4-2, we're going to have a discussion about the capital budget language. And 6-3, we're going to have a discussion regarding website versus local newspaper, or whether it's and. And we're taking out 8.5, continuation of government.
And ratified change to affirm throughout?
Right. So if we didn't change anything tonight, I'm just leaving it
Okay.
as is.
Okay.
Leave it as changes. And we're not voting tonight. This is
Okay.
just the proposed for the next draft.
Okay.
So everybody have an
You have to
opportunity.
change it from to ratify.
Ratify.
Ratify is what we're...
Equals affirm.
Ratify.
Yeah, I have it. Ratify equals affirm.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I
Okay?
thought it crossed back for a second.
So,
I just wrote it differently.
substantive proposed changes, if we go back to the top again, and I'm proposing substantive changes not controversial based on, and the definition of not controversial is based on, we really didn't get any feedback on it and it didn't seem controversial. That doesn't mean it's not controversial, it might be. Let's start going through that part.
Wasn't it?
Sonar, is that what it is?
Somebody's trying to set the charter.
Strong thunderstorms,
Oh, okay, yes.
Shock.
winds in excess of 30 miles an hour.
Yesterday it was 40.
That's
So, this first one, 2-4, time of meeting. And we said we would get back and talk about this. We're talking about
2-3, me and the finance committee.
oh, sorry, thank you.
Registered.
2-3. So, finance committee compensation term, adding the requirement that the members be
Oh, yeah, okay.
residents registered to vote in town.
Oh, is that somewhat controversial? I didn't think it was controversial at all. I thought it should just...
I don't think that one was controversial. No. It was just different. It was
Yeah.
just new.
Because they did have a member who
I
was not
remember.
registered to vote,
I remember.
and therefore could not vote at town meeting.
Right.
And after the appointment was made, we looked at the charter and there was nothing to be done. Because it wasn't written in there.
Right.
Right, that's why it's in there.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Mhm.
2-4,
Thank you.
time of meeting. This is why we have more eyes. So some of the discussion we had was trying to establish 2 regular town meetings. In the initial draft, we had the first town meeting, and then the second one was going to be an annual special. But the trouble with a special town meeting,
No, it was going to be annual special.
well, that was the first draft.
Okay.
And then when we finally got there, it was going to be called the second annual town meeting. We still have some issues because there's some laws that talk about things are done at the annual town meeting.
Okay.
And if we're going to have 2 annual town meetings, what's the implication of that? The theory of trying to put 2 meetings in here as time certain was to effectively give public notice that something's going to happen. We wanted to make sure that the 2 meetings had the same requirements. So for instance, get an Article on, and especially you need to have 100 signatures. For the annual, you'll only need to have 10. So we didn't want to go to the 100, or the theory, that's why we had 2 annuals.
Well, that would just seem to have a second meeting all the time anyway, and there were some
Right.
committees that felt it would be helpful that
Just
if they're trying
know.
to write code,
Yeah. Yeah.
code, then it would be.
Do you have to call it annual town? Can't you just call it the second town meeting?
That's the second town meeting. I'll work with town council to come up with the
I
correct
think
link.
typically on other town websites, it's in there as second town meeting.
Second town meeting.
Second town meeting.
Right.
Um,
Not special, it's just...
Yep.
Yeah, well, there are towns that have to schedule
Right.
town meetings, and then,
Okay.
but I also think that, like if they're already starting to provide childcare for the,
Yeah, that.
how did that go?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. I mean, it was also trying to get people to come and stay at meetings, because we were going to end them at a time certain too.
Right.
Didn't keep it warm.
Right.
Huh?
It kept it warm. I don't know if it helped because of the childcare.
I don't know how
I
many
think,
people
I
actually
think
use that. I have to
some
find
of the quorum was a pretty substantive things all the way to the end. And We actually ended up getting things done.
Yep, yep.
So, next section under Selectmen, 3-2, appointments. So some of the things regarding the non-controversial ones were, currently, the Selectmen appoint the town treasurer, the town collector, the Council on Aging Director, and the Animal Control Officer, and a Director of the Council on Aging. We proposed that those be appointed by the town manager, subject to ratification of the town selectmen. So even though, so that they still have a handle in it, but these are really what I consider department heads, and really should be reporting to the town manager. We'll come back and we'll discuss town accountant, because that one is more controversial, and we'll probably may switch that back. In reality, the treasurer and the collector, council on aging officer, animal control officer, really work hand in hand with the town manager anyway, so it makes more sense that there be more direct line. So let me know if you have any questions. We'll have another opportunity to talk about these too.
So the town clerk one,
We'll come back to that,
okay,
because
that's the one that was...
that's a controversy.
Yeah.
Next one is planning board. So under appointments, so 3-10 planning board, subsection C, appointments, the planning director is appointed by the town manager, subject to ratification by the planning board. And then it ends. The proposed language is the town manager will be responsible for supervision, evaluation, and all personnel actions related to this position. The town manager may appoint, if necessary, remove the planning director as the land use director to oversee land use departments, including the building, conservation, and zoning board of appeals. I think that last sentence doesn't belong under the planning board. It was there for relation to this. The current land use director is appointed, the current planning director is currently the land use director as appointed by the town manager currently. But we wanted to clarify that the town manager is the day-to-day supervision for the planning director. We'll come back. I want to clarify that with the town manager too. Next section is 3-14 Board of Sewer Commissioners, C, appointments. The sewer business manager is appointed by the town manager, subject to ratification by the sewer commissioners. The last sentence is the town manager will be responsible for the supervision, evaluation, and all personnel actions relating to this position. So that's consistent with the other one.
Now, would you consider that controversial?
I consider it clarifying, but there's a difference of opinion as far as what does it mean to supervise. So the assumption is, and whether we need to add some language, that the town manager would not do it in a vacuum, and there would be some input by each of the different boards that oversee these positions. But you can't do personnel management of a 5-member board position with this. We're trying to make it a clearer line of command on that. Town manager 4.1.
But just not to lose the point, and we don't have to debate it tonight. I think that was one of the major feedback issues when we were doing the outreach, is the library trustees, the sewer commissions, et cetera, the clarification and what do we do to kind of get on the same page before we talk about it again, between employees who serve a particular board or function but report to, for all intents and purposes, the town manager.
Right.
Right, except that, right, in the library board of trustees is just different because they do the evaluation and...
It was a lot of discussion with a lot of different boards, is what I'm
Right.
saying, and
Yeah.
I think we walked away from it saying, if we step back from this and take more time, we should use that time to socialize that discussion and to get to a place where we feel more comfortable. That's my only point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so more work on communication. Let's see.
Right.
4.1, appoint town manager. So the town manager screening committee, we had proposed adding, actually the town moderator recommended adding one town registered voter who's not a member of any committee or elected position in the town to be appointed by the town moderator to the selection committee, because all the other members of the selection is the selectmen, school committee, planning board, finance committee, and the town moderator. So they're already on various committees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the problem with that is that becomes an even number, and I believe there's a law that requires multi-member bodies not to be an even number. So some of the discussion we had is we're making it 6. If you add 2, it makes it 7. And that's a real tough committee to try to get together for a search committee. At the same time, you could do it.
Well, unless you took the town moderator's capacity to vote away and had, if he's going to be assigning a member, and he delegates the vote to the member he assigns.
Ex officio shall run the meetings but not have a vote.
Yeah. Because basically, I mean, technically, if he's assigned...
He's appointing somebody.
Yeah, if he's appointing somebody to vote, that
That would basically give him 2 votes, if he were to vote, right?
It doesn't mean that person's going to do what he wants.
Oh, no, I'm not even
Right.
assuming that they would. I'm just saying that basically, if you either have to add an additional person to make 7, or if he's looking for a regular voter, or if the moderator is looking for a regular voter to participate,
Then he would have no voting rights and just be the chair.
well, I'm not saying he should, but I'm just
Right,
saying
right,
that, yeah, that's a potential.
Okay.
I have no idea how what the town moderator would think about that, and what a future town moderator would think about that.
Well, I think when we,
You're the moderator.
Well, Nancy's gonna, he'll just keep appointing Nancy or Steve.
That's all.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good to actually have the town moderator in to one of our meetings to
Yes.
talk about this.
Okay.
Yes. Let's talk about a lot of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And that includes volunteer committee members, right?
Sorry?
Member of any committee includes volunteer?
I don't know.
Any committee or elected position in the town.
Town, like not PTO or something
Right.
like that.
No, well,
Girls.
Yeah, town
right,
committee.
but like the APDC is
Yeah.
appointed.
Yeah.
Right,
I think
as opposed to elected.
it excludes
Elected,
appointed
right.
and elected.
Yes.
Then that's what I wanted to clarify.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
4-2, powers and duties. So section C, so this is where the treasurer collector were recommended by the the town manager to the selectmen, as opposed to the moderator, the town manager appoints and the selectmen ratify. So that's, we propose that it follow the other way.
What?
that
that the treasurer,
the treasurer and tax collector are appointed by the town moderator, the town manager, subject to ratification by the selectmen, as opposed to the current way that they recommend the candidates to be appointed by the selectmen.
okay, one of the reasons why there were some issues that were controversial was because people thought that there wasn't enough check and balance.
That's the town accountant position. That was the one that came up as far as currently the town accountant is appointed by the selectmen with no involvement of the town manager at all. We had proposed that the town manager would appoint that subject to our ratification, and that's the one that has the check and balance.
I guess the issue though is that in a previous place, the town manager is delegating the chief financial officer, who is now the town accountant. So if the town manager is, I don't know if that,
So what happened?
I don't know if that gets messy in there.
Well, that was partly why we were trying to make it consistent, but the town accountant, finance director actually has two jobs. One is town accountant. The selectman can remove or hire, and the finance director is the town manager subject to ratification.
That's not what it says here, though, right? Let's see. It's the town accountant's still there.
Right, because that's in red. We haven't changed that to that one yet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that.
Because the other issue is, and then the fact that now the town accountant is appointed anyway,
Is this only for town clerk?
since it's the treasurer who actually signs checks,
Oh, I gotta ask.
that's the final check.
Didn't realize.
Because the responsibility through general law is that the treasurer can't sign anything that hasn't been duly processed.
Right.
Have to be a vote.
But treasurers traditionally are, in any case, it's...
I'd say it's just like,
The traditional thing of the treasurer is that signing the check is ministerial, and that the discretion is with the town accountant.
which is,
So the town accountant
I think you
signing...
need to state that in the charter, because in Mass General Law, it would read differently.
I think that the town treasurer, having been the treasurer technically cannot refuse to sign a check that the town accountant has ordered
They are absolutely required to refuse to sign a check.
if it's illegal.
Right, if they determine that it hasn't followed proper procedure.
Okay. Right. I hadn't heard that it was the town accountant part, so...
The town accountant can generate the check, but basically the town accountant can't.
No, the town accountant doesn't generate the check.
Who does generate the check?
The treasurer.
Treasurer generates and signs? Oh, okay.
But only on the order of the town accountant. So, I think at the town accountant, we have to...
Third base.
So we'll have to have some more discussion on this, but...
I mean, basically for me, like the whole financial section, I was just, like, why, I know that people would prefer it to stay that way because it does include the potential for writing checks and balances in, but a lot of these responsibilities are clearly delineated in general law as well.
Right.
So, I was just like, well, per general law would be fine, just take away 3 pages.
It still is who appoints. That's what we're doing.
Right, and I think that, yeah, so
That's what it's
if you're anticipating that the accountant is the,
I'm going to be making the recommendation that we pull the town accountant out of here when we get to the controversial part and leave it with the selectmen directly as a... let's see, next section is subsection I. This is town manager has full jurisdiction, and then we added the word subject to written policies. Over the rental use, we added the word maintenance and repair of all town facilities and property, except under the control of the school committee, the library trustees, and the conservation commission. So when we said full jurisdiction subject to written policies, there are various sections that talk about the day-to-day maintenance and repairs under the town manager. We wanted to give those other committees the ability to write written policies to help guide how that's actually done. So some of that's going to the how we're clarifying what's going on.
And that's for like parks and cemetery and stuff like that, is that correct? Okay.
And Shelby, And then we took out the last sentence because that we simplified it up above with maintenance repair. Section L, negotiate all contracts. We added the words "and bargaining units subject to ratification by the selectmen." 4-5, removal of the town manager. A lot of this language came from town moderator. Procedural within 5 days. The town manager may request a public hearing. The town moderator wanted us to clarify that the request is filed with the select board and the town clerk, and the town clerk is ordered to notify the moderator instead of it just being filed. And the selectmen should be informed of what's going on. The town moderator will preside over the hearing. At any such hearing, the reason for the removal shall first be read aloud. Town managers then have the right to respond personally or through counsel. The selectmen and the town manager have the right to call and cross-examine witnesses and subpoena any town records. So it's controversial in that it's a change, but it's not really controversial. It's really due process.
Would that actually go in a charter or?
Yeah.
Or process?
I think these are important rights. This is why the moderator wanted to add the rights in there as a requirement.
I don't disagree. I'm just wondering if the charter is the right place to have a procedure like that, that we'll do this first and then you'll do this. Or is there somewhere else that's more appropriate? And I don't know.
Yeah, unless you put it in the employment contract. I think this is important enough because.
I think it has to be public, right?
Well, removing the town manager is probably one of the most controversial
Yeah.
things in a town, other than removing a superintendent of schools.
I think the fact that the removal and suspension section is in there at all, which it has been, and it's not like that was added, probably adding some protections for the town manager is not added.
I don't disagree. It's just, I'm wondering if that's the right place.
It's a very
for it.
wordy charter.
It is.
Yeah, it is, just generally. I mean, basically, it's very specific in a lot of places. But, I mean, charters can range, if you look at different town charters, they go from like 3 pages to volumes, so.
Okay.
I was very impressed with the 3 or 4 page ones.
Yeah. Let's see.
Probably took 3 years to write.
That's right.
No, it was probably a charter group that couldn't agree on anything. So they did.
Why we won't do it?
Per bylaws, per the bylaws, because those are changed every 5 years.
So the next section is 7-11, enforcement of charter provisions in town general bylaws. This is drawn from a couple of other towns' charters. It shall be the duty of the town manager to see that the provisions of the charter and the town general bylaws are faithfully followed and complied with by all town agencies and town employees. Whenever it appears to the town manager that any town agency or town employee is failing to follow any provision, the town manager shall in writing cause notice to be given to such agency employee directing compliance. If it shall appear to the select board the town manager personally is not following, the selectmen by resolution shall direct the attention of the town manager to those areas where they believe is failure to comply. Procedures made available in Chapter 231A of the Mass General Laws may be used to determine the rights, duties, status, or other legal relations. So basically, we're trying to name somebody who will give notice to people, but the ultimate enforcement would need to go to court. And those provisions are already there where you'd have to go to court. I think that we have a lot of bylaws. Some are enforced by the police, some are silent, so it's not clear who's doing it. Now that we have this manager position, there should be somebody who, when it's brought to their attention, to notify the people. I think I'm going to put to do 711 to get information on Chapter 231A for procedures and stuff. And I don't know if somebody's not following the charter now, the enforcement process, whether an average citizen could go to court to say you're not doing the following thing. I'm going to ask town council, how are things normally enforced?
It would probably depend on what it was.
Yep. So, we've gone through the controversial, substantive change is not controversial, but maybe somewhat controversial. So let's just tiptoe into the red substantive change is controversial. Just so that we get them on the table, which ones, if anybody has changed any positions. So the first one is naming the selectmen the select board. And we have 2 new members who didn't weigh in earlier. And it'd be interesting to see if you have any initial opinions.
I don't think it matters in the grand scheme of things, but I did find it interesting during the public hearing that a former selectman referred to it as the select board. So I think people are using that language anyway. It's just not codified anywhere. For whatever that's worth.
Heather?
I'm fine with Board of Selectmen. I just call them BOS all the time. And so I would just assume keep it the same language. But
I was actually surprised at the number of people that found that to be controversial.
yeah,
I couldn't get over how many people talked about that.
Well, I also thought,
There's so much more substantive things to
Why
worry
change
about
all
than
that?
changing the name.
I thought that.
In my opinion.
Right?
well, it was interesting because what struck me at the meeting was that everybody who was saying, why would you change it, you should just keep it the same, were basically saying you should just keep it the same because it's always been that. Why would you change
Makes no
it?
sense to me.
But people who did want to change it basically said, no, we want more inclusive language. So it's like, okay, so if there are people who actually have an argument for change versus people who have no argument for, then, and I think I felt all along that, frankly, I don't personally care, but I know that there are people who do, and the people who do truly care about the change want the change. And everybody else is just upset because, why are you worried about this? So to me, that's what I was hearing was, why are you worried about this? Board of Selectmen was fine, and the former selectman who was commenting and using the select board phraseology was speaking against the change. So I just,
So part of the concept is try to be more inclusive, send a message to women and girls as they're growing up that they can be in elected officials position. So one of the things we learned as a result of talking with town council is that people have the ability to make changes to the various articles we have, so we want to separate the various sections. So we're going to have a section for when we finally figure out what's really not controversial. We're going to have that section as one article. Another section of not a substantive change, not controversial, we'll have them all there. And then each major substantive change that can be controversial, we have separate. So if we decide as a committee to move ahead with the select board, that would be one separate selection. So the other articles won't go down the tube with it. And so therefore people get a chance to vote. It's not all or nothing. And that's what a lot of people were, I think that was another thing people were upset with. Oh, you're making me do this when I want to change this. It's like, well, no, you get to pick and choose.
That's good.
But there are still people out there that would just as soon just do all or nothing.
Yep.
Yep. It all depends
There's a
on
lot of
who shows up.
resistance to change in town.
And the way the all or nothing would have been is if you actually had an elected charter commission and the members were elected, whatever they came up with was an all or nothing vote,
Right.
which was our first charter. So that's where that comes from. But since the provision we have within this says you have our committee as established, creates it, and then it goes to town meeting, it's not the same procedure. So most of the changes are select board, select board, select board, select board. So town accountant.
Town accountant.
So we had proposed that the town accountant would be appointed by the town manager and ratified by the selectmen. I agree that to have a check and balance, that we should not do the town accountant as appointed by the town manager, and that should stay with the selectmen.
So one appoints one and appoints the other.
Well, actually, the treasurer is appointed by the town manager, ratified by the selectmen, so they
Okay.
still have the ability, but they don't
Okay.
have the day-to-day supervision.
Okay.
The town accountant would be appointed by the selectmen, and theoretically, the selectmen are supposed to do day-to-day supervision, but we really don't.
Right.
That was part of the thing, is trying to have somebody that could do some supervision,
Mhm.
but the town accountant really is the one that says, town manager, treasurer, everybody else, you're not doing the right thing.
And how does the board of selectmen go about selecting the town accountant?
So we would advertise, we would probably usually use the town manager to set that up, but we would interview, we would hire. We negotiate the contract with the town accountant. We sign the contract with the town accountant.
So the whole five-member board, or is it like seven?
Five-member board.
Five-member board.
That's how we do it now, right?
Yeah. I think we need to set up some of the town manager valuation goals, some of the things like that, so we actually get more involved. Anybody have a problem with leaving the town accountant where it is now, appointed by the selectmen?
No, I think
Okay.
it makes perfect sense to keep the separation.
Okay. The other controversial one, before we get to town clerk, was we added the word director of facilities to the appointment by the town manager or subject ratification. We weren't creating a new position necessarily, but that's the way it was interpreted, that we were creating a new personnel position. We wanted to create the function that could be the DPW. Currently, I believe it's the DPW director is technically the director of facilities, but I don't know if that's a title.
Well, I think part of what made it confusing was that there are people who would like to add a position. And because that's how, I think that came through in the discussion around adding the language. So I think adding the function, I think that, and I'm not sure if that's what was happening, was that this was trying to find a way to
Creative.
a function, really, not necessarily create a
Yeah.
position, but identify the function so that down the road, if you did want to create a position, just the
It was
same way with
there,
the CAFO versus town
Okay.
manager.
So would it make sense to say the functional appointment of town manager, blah, blah, blah?
Well, I think we need to just be clear, is that, any of these,
Yeah, any of these are functional positions, right?
I
They're
mean,
not all individual.
well, like animal control officer has, if you appoint a person as animal control officer, there's a whole set of laws that go with that.
Right.
They could appoint the police chief as the animal control officer if they wanted to. But you still
Right, but
appoint
the
somebody...
function is still
the
there.
function, right.
Right, so you're fulfilling functional roles here, you're not doing individual roles.
No, that's
Individual
procurement.
people.
I mean, that's not much different than the whole
Right,
procurement
right,
discussion.
right.
So I think if you clarify just that first few words, say the functional appointment of these
What
positions.
does functional appointment mean?
The appointment of the functions or the appointment of,
Or, well, yeah, something about,
you're appointing functions, not...
you're appointing functions, not individuals, not positions.
Well, then you read right to the functions of town treasurer, town collector. How would you write that? Because it's offices.
Well,
Yeah.
right, so that's
So I guess the
That's what
question
we use in
is,
the word
Right,
thing, is
right.
what does that mean, that these are all functions of,
let's say,
Well, because when
See,
you
I don't,
go to the office.
personal opinion, I don't think we
it's
should
the director
schmooze
of
it like that.
facilities
I think this
office.
is controversial for a reason. And I think this is one that I would like to see have a point counterpoint where we're very clear on what we're talking about. Because I'm in favor of having a position.
Right.
Because we're talking about millions and millions of dollars worth of facilities. And I would like one neck to choke when it comes to who's keeping them up.
yeah,
right?
Oh, director of facilities.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think the controversial ones I assume we're gonna do like ballot questions where we kind of lay out the pros and cons
Yeah.
and we're real clear. And I don't think this is one I'd like to schmooze and make unclear. I think I'd like to make it very polar.
the other thing you could say, the town manager shall serve as director of facilities.
And then she can
So you can delegate.
I'm okay with that, but
But then it also,
as long as you articulate what...
that makes it clear we've got a person in charge.
Right.
So something happening with a building is the town manager who's not doing it, if that's the case. That might be the way to do it,
With that one.
with that one. But we'll talk to the town manager and we'll have continuing dialogue. Okay. This is why we're going all this. Oh, so while I'm there, appointment of the town clerk. So we have two new members to
Oh,
this
yeah, town
committee. What's your feeling, appointment versus elected? And you are allowed to make an appointment, a decision now, and you can change it later too. So.
From my understanding, being more, it has nothing to do with policy. And the way that I understood the argument for separating that as to an appointed position versus an elected made sense to me. That's a managerial, mainly in context, so.
Okay. Heather?
And an employee who's paid. So,
And they're
Yeah.
all appointed.
right.
I think the only place where it creates any kind of a conflict for me is if that's also the person who oversees elections, which is kind of odd.
And in reality is the elections are effectively supervised by the Secretary of State. But we need more clarification on that. That didn't always be the case. The Secretary of State is more involved in a lot more than was ever there before, partly because there were issues across the state with, not with our town, but with other towns, the way they ran elections, the way they ran registrations, the way they ran other things that needed to be done. So obviously, we will come back and have more vote on this, and I assume this will go forward as far as the opportunity to go to town, and it will be a separate section. And as Jamie said before, what would probably be good is if we actually did what they do with the state ballot questions. I think we talked
Yeah,
about it
it's
before,
really
is
good.
actually have somebody write up a paragraph,
Yeah.
use the maximum
Yeah.
wording, somebody else,
Before you go in and vote, those are really helpful.
Right, because at this point, the town clerk is supervised by no one,
Except for the voters,
except for
Because
for the
it's
voters.
elected, yeah.
every 3 years.
Right,
So,
but still paid for.
but that was basically no, I understand
Yeah.
that, but the argument against that was the check and balance piece.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was,
Right, right.
because there is no other elected body that oversees the functions of, I don't even know anymore.
You know, that's
Now
the
that
point,
they
there's
changed-
nothing in there that they
Right.
check or balance.
Right,
That's it.
Right. I mean, to me, it would be, because when you talk about the, town manager being responsible for the oversight of people following the charter, I would see that with the town clerk, not with the town manager. But if the town manager is appointing the town clerk, then it doesn't matter. But if it was an elected role and somebody was overseeing to make sure that we were following what our bylaws and stuff, then I would see that with the town clerk. But it's a ministerial position. To me, but I'm not, I've never been a town clerk.
So 3.5,
When this not
You
election?
have, haven't you?
When
What's
was-
that?
You've been town clerk.
town clerk. Yeah, I was also the town clerk, tax collector, treasurer, and chief accounting officer before we had the town accountant.
Oh,
We had a town auditor who came in once a year and checked my work. It wasn't my work, it was staff.
My history, my walking history book.
when?
That's what we
that
don't have, we
position
don't
up?
have a controller,
When
so
is
that's
that
what's
town
different
clerk's
too.
position up again?
Next year.
Next year.
Mhm.
Oh.
My understanding is that she plans to run again.
Okay.
Oh, I thought she wasn't gonna.
I thought so too.
Oh.
And that's why.
When was that? Was that recent?
When I got sworn in, I think I asked her when her term was up, because I was trying to figure out when, on the calendar, she said that she was considering running again.
And that's why the last section, 8.2, continuation of people in government, is that if the town voted this and somebody was elected, they continue on until their term ends.
Right, so
the question is,
it would be another 3 years.
well, the question becomes, town meeting is before the election.
Oh, right, okay.
So if this was adopted, but this wouldn't be adopted because it would go to the legislature. So it's not effective until the
Right.
legislature. So effectively, if she ran again and was elected, and this was, if the town voted to go for an appointed and she was elected, then she would be in for 3 years.
If anyone was elected, right?
Anyone was
Right,
elected.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Or if there was an election, there was an appointment.
Mhm.
3.5 Cemetery Commission. I am proposing we take out the language that I've actually added, where it says, provided, however, nothing in this section can be construed as authorize any member of the commissioners nor commissioner members to become involved in the day-to-day
Oh,
administration.
I'm going backwards.
I'm going to put it out there as saying that this appeared to the public as a power grab, and that was never the intention. It was the intention to clarify what the day-to-day care and maintenance was, but as somebody said, the clarification muddied the waters. So I'm proposing to take out this language, and that
And that would be every place it was added?
so this is cemetery, sewer, and park.
I would suggest that that's probably a good thing, but we still need to have that discussion and understanding of what it really means.
Yeah. I think part of the discussion was day-to-day care and maintenance of the cemeteries is different than... So part of what we're trying to do is to have the charter be the Constitution and have people work out what day-to-day care and maintenance is. We shouldn't be defining what today is. Day-to-day care and maintenance would be mowing the lawn.
Right.
I'd be fine with saying that that's the case. So that's fine. When it gets to deciding what things they're going to be spending money on, going to town meeting, the question becomes that maybe more of the operational. But I figure we as the charter should be trying to give guidance, and if it's already there, let's not muddy the waters by trying to clarify it, unless somebody can come up with better language. But you're right, we've got to come up with new language, then send it to them and say, here's what's going on. 3.7, library trustees. I will own the fact that I miscommunicated within the various things like this, so I will pull out their email with their language and identify what some of the languages. Since this went on, the town manager and the library director have been actually implementing the process of hiring various employees, which is what we were trying to make sure we were doing correctly. And they're posted centrally through the town, and then the library still hires, but we're following all the requirements. So we're going to make sure that the language meets what the library needs and what the town manager needs to have for the compliance. So I will take the responsibility to pull back the language that the library had, which is not here, so we don't need to go over any of that tonight. 3.9 is the park commissioners, taking out that additional language. 3-2 is the official. If we go for appointed town clerk, we would eliminate the elected town clerk position. 3-14 Board of Sewer is the added language, taking out the day-to-day, the no member involved. So town manager, under C, so that's 4-2C, we've already agreed to take out the word town accountant. The town clerk language would be in there if we keep going on with making the town clerk appointed. What was interesting, there was a question about the language of after town clerk, who if not currently shall be a resident of the town and registered voter within 6 months of appointment. It was thought that that referred to all the positions up above when it was only intended to be the town clerk. And the town clerk has to be a resident and registered voter in order to run elections. They actually have to be a voter. So we will, that's 4-2C, resident. I will take out the paragraph, because I think that's part of town clerk who.
You'll take it the
Parentheses.
yeah, not currently. Right. Strip. That's odd.
Let's see, next section.
Should you at somewhere define town clerk has to be a registered voter?
Well, that's where we would have, it would now say town clerk who, if the town clerk who shall be a resident and of the town and registered voter within 6 months of appointment.
Is that something that's legally required?
I believe so.
Can you just say qualified? I'm only asking because basically someplace else, when it talks about the town manager and they can appoint somebody qualified, and I don't know what that means, but I'm sure that there are requirements that have to be met.
Yep, we'll come up with language. Yeah, we're going to actually look at the language of another towns that has an appointed town clerk.
Okay.
Good point. Keep it simple. I think that's it for the controversial sections that are in the charter.
5.3. Section.
So under accounting, headed by town accountant,
Yes.
D3, right, we'll take out the word, thank you, so 5.3.
Keep the appointed by a selectman.
Yep.
That's the formatting document.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good, thank you. So, the other requested change from the outside that we did not adopt is a requirement in the event no caucus nominee, a write-in vote must have the same number
Oh, yeah.
votes as required to get on the ballot,
Right,
which is currently like 42.
yeah.
It's at 10% of the 10% of the prior?
to prior gubernatorial election, or something like that, whatever that. So,
I don't remember how many I had to come up with.
well, so what happens in that case is that if the person does not meet that requirement, if they get, say, 41 votes, the position would be considered vacant, and the position for elected would then go to a joint meeting of the remaining members of that board and the Board of Selectmen, who would then vote to appoint that person
Till the next election.
till the next election. So,
So we're saying if there's a caucus nominee, it doesn't matter how many votes they got at the
Right.
caucus.
No, it's just if there's not, and then,
Right,
right.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I believe that was the last way it was written. So
But not
I,
only qualifies for writing candidates, not those who have already gotten the signatures and qualified.
right, it's only if, so, yeah, right.
Okay, so just to be a pain. So a caucus nominee and a write-in candidate, the write-in candidate has 30 votes and the caucus nominee has 20. So the caucus nominee wins the election. Yeah, just
No, in that case,
Oh, my God.
it's because it says in the event there is no caucus nominee.
Because there would be no caucus nominee, so that wouldn't be any...
Well, that's interesting, though, but she's right, though. If there is a caucus nominee, but the write-in beats them,
The write-in wins. This provision only
Only.
applies if there is no caucus nominee.
Mhm.
Or, I think it was no caucus
Or no-
nominee
no
and no
qualifiers.
nomination papers.
Yeah, no qualified name on the ballot.
So effectively, no qualified name on the ballot.
that might be the way we want
So-
to...
so
Yeah,
it's
because
the-
otherwise-
yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to know what that means either.
Well, that's why we put, well, and it goes
I don't
back,
think people are going to read the charter.
it goes back,
Oh, well, okay, I haven't read it for...
right. Well, it goes back and forth, huh? Well, and somebody...
Just before the...
I've read it through a few times, I still,
You keep seeing different things. That's why we're doing it tonight, just going over it without taking a vote, other than just general agreements, so that we can come back and get the actual language, think about it, and do it again. So this one, we'll get the actual language and get it out to you. There was another one for ranked choice voting. Ranked choice voting is when you have multiple people running. Ironically, our last selectmen's race would be the case. You had 3 candidates running, and you would have the opportunity to vote, here's my first choice, second choice, third choice. The person who got more than 50%,
look it up.
more than 50% of those voting on the first ballot would win, because they win 50, they've got the majority. If you didn't hit 50% of those voting, the last candidate's votes would get distributed out to all the remaining. And what that then does is you get somebody who has more than 50% vote. Quite often, it's the same person gets more votes who's at the top, but then you find out from the theory behind it you get from the town is who are the most people comfortable with running the town. I don't like, I'm going to vote for this candidate, I really like this candidate, I know they're not going to win, but if they don't win, I'm fine with this candidate going in. That's what the theory being is. So I'm not asking, so we didn't do it last time because it was brand new. There are some towns in Western Mass that have adopted it. There's an attempt, the state of Maine has adopted it. There's other states that have done it. It may be too soon for the town to do it. Since we have this open again, I'd like to do it even if it's just an not do it. I'd like to discuss it again even if it's just an informational session.
The Boston Globe, the editorial today was,
Mhm.
they want ranked choice voting.
And the interesting thing is,
Yeah, it made me think of this.
Yeah.
So it was-
so the interesting thing about it is that the people pushing ranked choice voting had went to both the State Democratic Commission, Committee, Convention, and to the Republican Convention, because it's nonpartisan.
Right.
Because there is no guarantee that Republican or Democrats are going to win as a result of this. What they've talked about, one of the benefits is that because I need you to vote for me for your second or third, I'm going to be nicer to you instead of ignoring you, and I'm only going to go with my people.
So gee, that would make a presidential election interesting with the spoilers not being true spoilers.
Right. And if you think about our
And
current
primaries.
our current congressional election,
We have 14.
the 14 candidates on the
Candidates.
Democrat and 3 or 4 on the Republican, and they're saying if I can get 23% of the vote, I'll get it.
That's not.
It doesn't feel right to have 23% of the district electing somebody who will probably be the next.
Well, it's 23% of the 30% that bother showing up. If it's-
But, yeah, that's
That's
another
the other
discussion.
subject.
And then there was the third thing we talked about. Those were the 2 elected, and then there was another one,
Was it term limits?
term
It
limits.
was, yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
But I thought you talked about
That
not
was
doing
very
term
good.
limits.
I came up,
Yeah.
I thought it was to
I
say
didn't
that you
know
weren't going to do
Yeah.
term limits.
Well, but everything's open again.
Yeah.
So part of the thing becomes, the discussion is, and I'm,
All the way up.
what's really interesting about it is it goes to one of the interesting things that Katie had brought up was that, okay, so you're selectman for 2 or 3 terms, and then when you're young, and you do a career, and you come back, and you're now, in your later time, you want to come back serve again, does that term limits count? Or is it consecutive term limits? What are we trying to do here? Some of the we have presidents who only can serve 8 years, and we have Congress and senators can serve forever. So,
And like
is
governors
that
can
good, is
serve
that bad? At the same time, every 3 years, you have the 4 years for those, 6 years for senators. Every year, every 2 years, we elect our state representative. All of them will come over.
Yeah.
And so, I go back and forth on this one too, because, when you get somebody really good, you want to keep them. When you get somebody really bad, you want to get rid of them. But if the voters voted, well, okay. So, we'll just bring it up again just as a discussion. We'll see what other towns do for these things. I think it's valuable to consciously consider something, either do it or not do it, and then let people know what we're doing. And I would ask you to look at any other charters that may come along the way and see any other language that you think that's not in ours that would be helpful, or if you see any language that would be clarifying. And with that, it's 8:27. We try to end by 8:30. Our next meeting is August 22nd, and I'm going to move the schedule for the review process to then. We'll actually try to come up with a calendar between now and town meeting.
I will be out of town.
Okay?
When is it? The 22nd?
22nd.
Yeah, I got that. Okay.
Okay, any other comments from the board? No public comment?
Will we adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.